What's going on? Welcome to another live quarantine TV edition of Real Fans Real Talk. Oh man, it's been a pretty good week in sports. Championship week, for our college athletes. We had WrestleMania just went down as well. A lot of champions over there. The start to baseball season, and of course, I think this one is a favorite for me and Eric right here. The Bing Bong uh get to the playoff parlay is officially in motion. But let me introduce my co-host, my brother, the one and only Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in Two Games.
What's really good, bro? I'm super excited to get to it this week. Man, it's a peak weekend right now because, as you mentioned, we just got out of the NCAA championships. We got the NBA playoffs right around the corner. Major League Baseball's in full effect, and then we have so much good boxing to talk about as well. So we got a lot to get into, man. I hope everyone enjoys what we bring to you guys tonight.
Well, usually we don't just shake up the schedule like we about to shake up the schedule right now because we were supposed to start with some NBA talk, but because a very good friend of the show was in action tonight, even though he wasn't really in action for long, but he did have a fight tonight. Bruce Carrington, aka Shoo Shoo, was back in action tonight, and the fight kind of ended early. We might have to start calling him, instead of Shushu, we might have to call him Bruce Baby Mike Tyson Carrington from now on, because the pay-per-view or the fights rather, they don't seem to last too long. I believe it was a second or third round knockout. Let me
Second round to
oh no.
end the round as well. He almost put him away in the first round. He
Yeah,
had to do backpedaling for the last minute of the first round, Chambers, and then in the second round he just continued the assault. Man, the body work was amazing. Shout out to Shushu. He went in there and handled his business. I mean, we would love to see him get more rounds in because we know how talented he is. But I mean, it just seems that they put him in front of him, and Shushu acts as if he has dinner reservations. Like he got to get him up out of there quick.
yeah. So happy, for a very humble, brother. He deserves this. He definitely puts in the work. You guys know, if you've been following us, he's been on the show several times. We're gonna get him back up here to recap the fight as well soon. So make sure you guys are tuning in for that, because we are gonna have Bruce Carrington rocking out with us to do a little fight recap. Even though, dang, Eric, is not even much to recap in a fight. We have to wait. We gotta do like three fights at a time so we can like all kind of build up, and it'd be a lot for us to recap.
Yeah, I mean, last time we had him on, he was coming off of the two back-to-back knockouts that both were candidates for knockout of the year.
Mhm.
Now this one doesn't even last 6 minutes. I mean, it ain't much recap you can give off of a 6 minute fight. He gonna be like, I hit him, he can handle the punches, he really didn't hit me, and we got up out of there.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like confused as to what we're supposed to do as people trying to hold down the sports show. We thought we was gonna have a little bit more. We could have did a round by round breakdown, but it just didn't work out that way. But we have told you guys in the past um, that Bruce Carrington does have a hell of a right hand, and if he connects with it, there's a chance that you could get knocked out. So we've had him as knockout of the year a couple of times. So you have to watch out. But yeah, he was incredible in the ring. The defense, I feel like he improves every fight defensively, and the timing, the timing and the counter punching. It was an amazing fight. Big shout out to Bruce Carrington. Because he definitely puts in the work, and he got the dub, man, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I'm so happy for him because, as you mentioned, very humble guy, very down to earth guy. If you didn't know Bruce Carrington, if you met him out somewhere, you would not know he was a fighter. He does not present himself in that way. But when he gets in the ring, he is definitely all business, and he ain't playing no games with nobody out there, man. Be on the lookout for this kid because his star is rising.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So now that we don't spoke about the fight, we're gonna come back to that because Shakur Stevenson is fighting tonight. He has not fought as of yet, but he is fighting tonight. So we're gonna come back to boxing a little bit later in the program.
Yeah,
Um,
the main card starts at 10, so we're trying to get this in before we get to not only Shakur but also Keyshawn Davis, who's another rising star as well.
Yes. And then Anthony Joshua also had a fight as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the program. But for now, um let's talk let's talk NBA, man. Um there's a lot going on right now. The playoffs are a little bit over a week away. We have an official number one seed with the Bucks locking that down in the Eastern Conference. So let's jump into some playoff basketball, man. Talk to me, Eric, about the Bucks this season and how far do you think they'll go this playoffs?
Well, I mean, the Middleton injury does scare me a little bit. He went out the other night from that game, and obviously with Middleton, I think they are the best team in the East. I do think not only that they're just a legitimate number one seed, but that they are the team that's probably going to represent the East. But without Chris Middleton, things change for them, and we saw that last year when they lost in 7 games to Boston. If they're healthy, though, I don't see a scenario where another team in the East can beat them 4 games. They're just too physically imposing. It starts with Giannis. It continues on with Lopez, with Bobby Portis, with Drew Holiday hounding you on the perimeter. And then they bring the shooters out. Obviously, we talked about Middleton, who's a guy who can create and can shoot, but Connaughton, Grayson Allen, Joe Ingles, just a lot of guys they throw at you. They have depth, they have talent at the top. They are well coached, despite things I might have said about Coach Bud a few years ago. They are well coached, and I think they're the best team in the East, man. And it's going to be tough to go into Milwaukee and win a series.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be honest with you. They are going to need Chris Middleton if they want to get back to the finals. Um, Without Chris Middleton, I still think we see Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals. But I don't know if they beat a healthy Boston team when they're down Chris Middleton. We saw just how important he was last year when they didn't have him and they went home early. Um, in the finals where they could have played the Warriors that year, but we saw how important Chris Middleton was to this team, especially because it takes away from the depth when he's not on the court. So, I'm hoping that he's healthy because I hate going into the playoffs and we missing superstars. That sucks for basketball fans. No matter what your team is, when you go into a playoffs and there's a star missing or a couple of players missing, it's like, come on, man. I want to see guys going at it at full strength, so that way we don't have the excuses of, oh well, this guy was out, that guy was out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm hoping that Chris Middleton is able to come back and they can go on the run, because I do think that if Chris Middleton is healthy, the Bucks get back to the NBA Finals.
I mean, I agree. We talked about it so many times. We never want injuries to play a factor in the playoffs. The one thing Milwaukee can bank on, though, is they played a lot of games without Chris Middleton, not only last season but also this season because he was in and out the lineup.
Yeah.
So I don't think they will be shocked if they don't have him for several games or even a series. I think they'll be fine. I think the importance of the number one seed, though, is really avoiding what's going to be a true slugfest in the second round. That 2-3 matchup, if it plays out the way we think, right now we're talking Boston, Philly. Those teams are going to beat each other up in that second round, and that might play to Milwaukee's benefit to get a team that might have just come out of a war and then
Yes.
have to face you. Whereas for Milwaukee, the path is easier. They're going to get obviously whoever the AC coming out of the play-in tournament is, and then they're going to get the winner of Cleveland, New York. Cleveland, New York are good teams. Obviously, those are my Knicks. But those two teams don't match up to what Boston and Philly are. You're talking about Boston, who was just in the NBA Finals last year. You're talking about Philly, who probably has the MVP, and Harden looks like he's playing like his previous self as opposed to what he looked like last year. That second round matchup, if it plays out the way we think, that could still benefit Milwaukee because Milwaukee's path may be a little easier to Eastern Conference Finals,
Yeah.
where Boston and Philly, that's going to truly be a back alley fight.
Yeah. Word. Definitely, definitely. I would love to see that series as well. I'm looking forward to this first round too, though, man. I'm actually excited. For both New York teams, clinching playoff spots. I think that's big for the city. Um, don't think either team is built to go on a championship run. But I do still love that both New York teams are in the playoffs this year. But yeah, man, I think this playoffs is gonna come down to health. Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the Knicks can beat Cleveland in the first round series if everybody's healthy. I'm throwing that out there, Eric. I know I get at the Knicks a lot, but I do feel like the Knicks can beat a young Cleveland Cavaliers team in the first round series.
I agree. I think it's going to be a great series. I think Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell in the year that Donovan Mitchell has had, he's been phenomenal for them. But I think the Knicks have depth, and when you look at the way Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes have progressed, and now the minutes that they've been able to give Obi to let him really get in the swing of things going into the playoffs, this Knicks team is really really deep. This Knicks team is pretty scary. They play good defense. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the league. And this is going to be one of them unique matchups because, yeah, the best player in the series is probably in Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell. But
Mhm.
I think the best overall team is the Knicks. And then it comes down to coaching. And I think the Knicks have the advantage there as well. So I think the Knicks definitely are a live underdog to win this series.
Yeah, I agree. Um,
Bing bong.
but there you go. I
Bing bong.
think they can, and if they play on the same day as the Mets and the Yankees, then put your tickets in.
I tried it. Listen, I dropped a teaser for the people. I let you know, Trip. I hope you've been following my lead on this. When the Mets and Yankees play on the same day, you got to take them. The Mets already won today. The Yankees up 4-1 right now. It's about to hit again. You're talking about, again, two teams that are easily going to win 90 games this year. Mets and Yankees are going well above 90 wins this year, which means they're going to win a lot on the same day. Take it.
Yes.
It's easy money.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm loving it for New York. This is a good time for New York sports fans. Like it really is a good time for New York sports fans because we have both basketball teams in the playoffs. We also have the Yankees and the Mets right now, which both were preseason favorites to make it to the World Series. You know what I mean? So which basically means that there's a possible Subway Series, World Series in the making this season. If both of these teams can stay healthy, and can build off of what they did last season. So this is a really good time for New York sports. And then of course, we know what the New York Liberty did this off season. It's going to be a really good couple of years. I think because all of these teams are pretty young. That Liberty team is young. The Knicks is a pretty young team. I believe that Julius Randle is like the elder statesman on the team, but
That's
after that, the
correct.
rest of those guys are young. And the same thing. Brooklyn, they're a really young team, and Mikael Bridges is showing improvement every week. That he's a budding star in this league, and now that he has a chance to really show what he can do offensively, as opposed to just kind of being the defensive stopper and then being in the rotation of scoring when you can after Booker, Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton have had their shots. If there's something left over, you can get you a shot in. But you're really here to play defense. Now he's getting an opportunity to show what he can do offensively, and he's putting up some numbers for Brooklyn. So I think
He's
both teams will be good moving forward.
he is having a phenomenal stretch right now with Brooklyn. And this is a trade, not to, get too forward with the thinking on it, but this is a trade that's going to be very interesting when we evaluate a couple years from now because the Suns, we know they're all in. They're trying to win with KD. Their window is kind of shrinking. They want to win now. But if you're Brooklyn and you get a guy like Miles Bridges, Mikael Bridges, sorry, Mikael, and as you mentioned yourself, Trip, in the past, you feel he's an all-star caliber player, and I think he has all-star talent.
Mhm.
And with all the draft picks they got from Phoenix, Brooklyn might have the makings of a really good young core that you start to build around and use those picks to get the other pieces. But Bridges is definitely showing you that he can be a guy who can be a leader of this team. I like it, man. I love the way he's playing. I like that he's taking full advantage of his opportunity in Brooklyn right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned that trade with Dallas. So let's talk Dallas right now. Um, Dallas. It was kind of I was kind of like it's a little bit confusing as to what's been going on recently, right? So Dallas, they protest the game, the Golden State game, which I do understand. I personally I felt like they did have a gripe there, in that game because there was a lot of confusion at the end of that Warriors game. Okay, but whatever. The league basically shuts it down. It's nothing going on with that. They're not overturning anything, so it was wrapped with that. But then it was like, all right, well, we still actually have a chance to make the playoffs, and we're all in. And then it was the no, now we're actually going to bench um, starters and a couple of other players in a crucial game where if we win this game, we're still alive and able to be in the possibly be in the playing tournament. But they decided to bench their guys. Ultimately, they lose. And OKC locks in the 10th seed. What do you make of what's going on in Dallas? Because now they're under investigation by the league.
As they should, because it was a blatant tank move. There was nothing subtle about it. They benched 4 starters, as you mentioned, with an opportunity to still play for your playoff and playing lives. It was a blatant tank though, because the stipulations of their draft pick really hinge on if they could actually make the playoffs, not just the play in, the playoffs. The Knicks own the right to that pick, but it has top 10 protections this year. So by them missing the play in completely, that pick is going to stay with Dallas because it's going to be a top 10 pick, but it rolls over to next year. So the Knicks could take advantage of it next year. But it was Dallas's way of saying, we don't even want to run the risk of making the playoffs and then have to still give up potentially a low lottery pick to the Knicks, because making the play in, but if they get bumped in the play-in, then that pick could potentially go to the Knicks, and it would lessen their opportunity to be a top 10 pick. So it was blatant by the Dallas Mavs. Luca only played the first quarter. It was already known beforehand that he was only going to play the first quarter. And Jason Kidd even said himself that he really didn't agree with it. When the reporter asked him, whose decision was it, he said, well, it was the front office. So he already let it be known that came down from Mark Cuban and the front office to Nico Harris, who's the GM there, to not play Luca, to bench the other starters, and try to secure the highest possible draft pick they can. So the league should investigate this. I think there needs to be a penalty on this, because the reason they implemented the playing game was to try to eliminate teams trying to tank late in the season, giving teams an option and an alternative and an opportunity to possibly be a part of the playoffs. So for them to kind of thumb their nose at the league here, I don't think Adam Silver is going to take this lightly.
Yeah, I tell you, the move threw me off. A couple of layers here. One, I don't think Luca's gonna want to be in Dallas much longer. That's number one. Two, I don't think Jason Kidd is going to be in Dallas much longer because he didn't even try to sidestep that question. He basically let it be known. No, it's not a decision that I would have made. This is a decision that was made by our GM, that was basically stamped for approval by our owner, Mark Cuban. So I'm not with this at all. I want to play and try to get in the playoffs, and that's understandable because he's a player first, and that's the player mentality. Like, hold on, now we ride this thing to the wheels fall off. Because first of all, one, we have a chance to actually make the playing tournament, which means we have a chance to make the playoffs, and two, you know what I mean. The Western Conference is really shaky. Like we got to be honest. There's no team, even with Denver being in first place, I still don't feel like it is a cakewalk for Denver to make it to the NBA Finals. And they're the number one seed, and they've been the best team in the Western Conference pretty much the entire season. And I don't even have that level of confidence in them to say, yeah, they're a heavy favorite going into this thing. The West is completely shaken up. Any team realistically can not, well, I ain't gonna say any team, but there's several teams in the West that can make deep runs this playoffs, and could get to that championship series.
No, I think you're right. I think any team can be beat in the West because every team has their flaws. Granted, on paper, Phoenix looks really good, but they don't have a lot of depth on that team. And, injury to Chris Paul or KD could derail that whole thing, or even Devin Booker. It could derail that whole situation for them. So on paper, they look like the best team, but you know, do I like them enough to think that they're going to just cruise through the West? No. I don't like Denver enough. I don't like Memphis enough. We talked about Memphis last week. I think Memphis, if they get the Lakers in the first round, I mean, if you're Memphis, was it even worth being a number 2 seed? You know what I'm saying? Like, if your reward, yeah, if my reward for being a number 2 seed is to get the best version of the Lakers that we've seen all year,
For 2 years.
then yeah, I don't know if that's really a reward for me. So Golden State, Again, on paper, we all assume they're gonna be pretty good. They get Andrew Wiggins back. They now Gary Payton is playing well, but they haven't played well on the road all season.
Yeah.
So they're very beatable. I think the West is wide open. I think the East, we kind of know what we're getting in the East, as we highlighted before. We know what we're getting in the East. And the West is purely about matchups. It's purely about who plays who in what round. I don't think in the West we can project at all who's gonna go to the finals until we see round by round the matchups.
Yeah, shout out to Anthony Price. He says Denver is a bust. First of all, Jokic is hurt right now. They haven't really spoken on how bad it is. I know he'll be able to play for the playoffs, but Jokic is already a guy who's not athletic. So I don't know how this injury is going to affect him in the playoffs. And again, you could find yourself in a situation where if you're not about around at least 90%, in the second round series, you could find yourself going home if you're Denver. Because again, there's not one team in the West that, we confidently feel like, all right, now they definitely at a minimum they're getting to the Western Conference Finals, definitely hands down, no debate. Like I just don't have that level of confidence in any of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, you can't because, like you said, if Joker isn't 100% or if Joker isn't on his A game, we don't really know what we're gonna get from Denver. Like it's easy to be like, oh, well, they got Jamal Murray. Well, Jamal Murray ain't looked like Jamal Murray since the bubble. That was 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
And he's
Michael
been
Porter
back for a while
Jr. Yeah, it's 3 years ago. Michael Porter Jr. He's a guy like as much as we love to get on AD about being healthy, Michael Porter Jr. falls right in that same category. He can give you 25 or he can give you 7. It really depends on the night you catch him on. So Denver, I don't think has the luxury that as we talk about with Milwaukee with depth or Boston or Philly, where you know what you're going to get from those teams.
Yeah.
Denver is truly hit or miss. Granted, I would expect them to get out of the first round, depending on who their matchup is. But if they were to get the Lakers in the first round, I would be less confident about Denver because again, AD has played really well the second half of this year. Braun is still Braun, and the rotational pieces there are better now on the Lakers.
Yeah.
If they get somebody else, if they get another team in the West, if they get an OKC, yeah, I would expect them to beat them. But I still wouldn't be betting on Denver moving forward just because it's very inconsistent and I don't know what I'm getting from them.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why this thing is shaky. So if I'm Jason Kidd, if I'm Luca, if I'm Kyrie, I'm trying to play. Because there's a shot we can make it. At the end of the day, we have two superstars on this team, and a lot of times having multiple superstars can help you out in situations. You know what I'm saying? Definitely to get out of a first round series against a Denver team, and we don't know how healthy Jokic is going to be.
Well, I mean, you take it a step further. If we get into the playing game, if we win 2 playing games, we're the 7th seed.
Well, exactly. Oh, we just
Right. We could be the 7th seed and face a young Memphis team who isn't much more experienced than Dallas.
yeah,
And you never know what's going to happen. And we heard now that Steven Adams is out for the year, so they're going to be banged up in their front line because he's their most physical presence in the
yeah,
interior. But for Dallas, the things that stick out to me, and I'm glad that you mentioned it about Luka long term Dallas. How does that play out?
mhm,
If Jason Kidd gets fired this year, which is very possible, Luka will already be on his 3rd head coach, right?
yes,
Coach Mosley in Orlando was Luka's guy. He was the assistant in Dallas. Him and Luka had a great relationship. He's over in Orlando now. So the one guy on the staff that Luka really relied and trusted on is no longer there. And Coach Mosley was the guy that most people thought was going to get the job after Carlisle was let go
yeah,
because of the relationship with Luka. But Mosley took the Orlando job instead. You make the trade for Kyrie. And as we've highlighted before, what do you do with Kyrie now? Because we gave up assets
yep,
to get you. So are we going to pay you what you want to keep you here so we can quote unquote run this whole situation back? I don't know if we're even doing that.
yeah,
So I think there are legitimate concerns in Dallas. Also, let's not forget, Luca just recently came out and said, I'm not happy. Those were his exact words. I'm not happy. So I think there's a carryover effect. Shout out to Anthony's comment there, Anthony Price there. I'll let you start off there.
I'm sorry if the Lakers won't go far if they stay in the play-in, they can't stay healthy. Well, let me say this. I don't. I It's not about the playing for the Lakers. It's about health. That's really what it
Absolutely.
comes down to is health. It doesn't matter where they land because again, the Western Conference is shaky. There's no Milwaukee's in the Western Conference where you're like, all right, we know they're gonna be there. There's no Boston's where it's like, all right, we know they're one of them ones. There's no Philly like where we're like, all right, this team can get there. It's not like that in the Western Conference. So it's not about where the Lakers land because you know a banged up Denver team versus a healthy Lakers team with AD playing the way he's been playing as of late. That's going to be a very tough team to beat. Them playing against a Memphis team who you just mentioned now does not have Steven Adams. He's done for the rest of the year. That's going to be hard for them to deal with El Healthy Anthony
Mhm.
Davis because
Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to have a tough time, and they're missing Brandon Clark as well. So they're missing two
yeah
guys on their front line. That will be a tough series. And I agree with you, Trip. Not to talk over you on it, but for the Lakers, it's more about health. Now, I don't have them coming out of the West.
yeah
However, I think in the first round, the Lakers are a very dangerous opponent because if the Lakers handle their business early, we got to remember the playing tournament starts Tuesday.
yeah
Let's say the Lakers win their playing game on Tuesday. They're not going to have to play again on Saturday. So now they're going to get a few days to rest up again to now load up for whatever matchup it is, more than likely Memphis.
yep
And in that series, I think the Lakers are a very scary team. Beyond that, it's just like Tripp said, health. Health is going to be everything for them moving forward. But in a first round matchup, coming off of 4 days of rest and we able to really game plan for who we about to play, I don't think I believe in Memphis that much to think they could beat the Lakers in a 7 game series. I
yeah
just
no
Memphis has one career playoff series win with their current group.
yeah
Let's not act as if we're talking about a team who's consistently made playoff runs. They've got one playoff series win with Ja in this group.
exactly. Let's go back to Dallas really for 1 second. Eric, you can take this one. Who you think leaves first, Luca or Embiid?
Oh, Luka easily. Embiid already signed his new deal. I also think with Daryl Morey as the GM and president over there in Philly,
Mm,
he's a guy that has a proven track record of trying to build around the stars. He did it when he was in Houston. He basically gave in to Harden and got whatever co-star Harden needed to
yeah,
try to make them competitive. He'll do the same thing with Joel Embiid. Um, we also see Embiid, whether he wins MVP or not, I think Embiid is at his peak right now, and he loves the city of Philadelphia because they've really embraced him as their guy as well. Luke, on the other hand, they haven't had much success. Yeah, they made a little run last year in the playoffs, but other than that, first round exits a couple times to the Clippers. They haven't been able to find him a co-star. As I mentioned, he's probably going to be on his third head coach going into next year.
mhm.
Let's also not forget they tried the Porzingis experiment. That didn't work. They've tried the Kyrie experiment. That hasn't worked. He's on a second general manager already. This has all the makings of a guy who, yeah, he may sign his extension and then request a trade a year or two after that. I think Luka is definitely out of there within the next year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, because when you look at the two teams, right? We talk about Philly as being a legitimate title contender. We don't speak about Dallas in that light, right? That's number one. Number two, uh, like you said, this experiment didn't work out. The Kyrie Irving experiment in Dallas didn't work out. They had a losing record. When they played together, and they were in fifth place when the trade first happened, and wound up not even making the playing tournament. So now, if I'm Kyrie, why would I want to resign in Dallas? Like we're not going to get miraculously better because one, there's no money to bring anybody else over. So you really got to try to finesse the system to even put together a team, that can realistically contend. So most likely Kyrie is up out of Dallas after this season, and that was the chance that you took when you gave up all of those pieces to make this trade happen. So now you have that, and then you think Luka's gonna want to stick around. You already his guy is already out. You mentioned that. His other guy is already out. Boban, they don't have him anymore. Who was really close friends with Luka. How long do you think he's gonna stay in Dallas and they're not winning?
And I'll piggyback that thought as well. I'll give you another guy who he was cool with who's not there, Jalen Brunson, who they could have re-signed for far less money than
Yep.
it's going to take them to keep Kyrie Irving. So they could have kept the core of what was a team that made a playoff push last year, and instead they didn't want to sign Jalen Brunson. They end up eventually making a trade for another guard anyway, and now they're going to have to overpay what I feel is an overpay anyway of Kyrie. Um, I don't see how Luca could be happy about any of these things.
Yeah. So definitely out of the two of them, I definitely think it's Luca who would be up out of off of his team first. Um, and I think I'm fairly confident that Embiid gets the MVP this year, and that if that does happen, he's not leaving Philly. If he gets an MVP in Philly, he's not leaving. Especially if they're still in the mix every year, they have a team that can contend, and they do. They have a team that can win a championship. We just have them ranked third in the East as far as after Boston and Milwaukee, but it's not like it's a far stretch to say that Embiid could turn into MVP in Embiid in the playoffs, and you get a little bit more of James Harden from old and the rest of those guys, Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, step up and elevate their games in the playoffs, they can be in an NBA Finals. So
Yeah, I mean, they're not. They're really not far off. I mean,
yeah,
especially if you look back at the last couple years. Kawhi Leonard hits one of the luckiest shots ever against them in a playoff game,
mhm,
and Toronto ends up winning the finals that year when it could have been Philly,
yeah,
right? That was the Philly team that still had Jimmy Butler on it as well, so they were in position to be a really good team and a deep threat in the playoffs. Couple years after that, Embiid on one leg is averaging 30 points a game against Atlanta.
yeah,
So, Embiid is doing everything he can, and I don't think Philly is far off from being a championship team. It's just that when you look up the East, you got a team like Milwaukee with Giannis there. You got Boston with probably the best tandem in all of basketball there. It's going to be tough for Philly, but they're a lot closer than where Dallas is.
yeah. Another guy that won't be back in time for the playing tournament, Zion. We've been rooting for him. We've really been rooting for Zion and hoping that he can come back on the court and play because when he's out there, he's been dominant. He's been really good, but he just can't stay out there. He won't be back. What chance do you give the Pelicans to make it out of the playing tournament without Zion?
They could make it out as an eighth seed. I mean, right now they're the eighth. I don't think they would beat the Lakers in the first matchup. They could possibly win that second matchup, but that's where it stops. I think the tragedy with Zion is, he's missed so much time over the last 4 years. There's a guy, he had a hamstring pull in January. He hasn't played since.
Yeah,
Um, that's the most troubling part about this. An injury that should not take you 3 months is going to take you far longer than 3 months to even recover from. We know about the weight issues. We know about the conditioning. I just don't know if we're ever going to see what we expect from Zion. We may see it in short bursts. As you mentioned, he was looking really good this year before he got hurt, maybe in 20 to 30 game bursts. But he's a guy I don't think that's ever going to live up to that potential of what we thought he was going to become when he was drafted number one.
yeah. So, and it really does suck because this is a kid that has a lot of potential
Yeah.
and can be a superstar in this league if he can just stay healthy.
Yeah.
We hopefully listen. I hope he can come back next season, but we'll see how it goes.
Hmm.
Really quick, and I'm not gonna go too deep into this one. But former NBA guard Ben Gordon was arrested this week as well. Um, it's tough, man, because you know when we see a lot of these guys that are at the top of the world during their playing time, and then afterwards, for whatever reason, things start to go south. I just wanna wish Ben Gordon well. I hope he gets the help that he needs. And he can bounce back and just be there for his family.
I agree, man. Thoughts and prayers out to him. I'm praying that he gets the help that he deserves. Um, it's very, very troubling to hear, what took place. And I don't want to gossip on it because this is real life that he's dealing with right now, but I definitely hope he gets the help that he needs and is able to get things back on track because he's still very young. He's still got a lot of life to live.
And while we're talking about former players, I just got to say this because you guys know we talk about the group chat and things that we post in the group chat, but there was a clout chaser out there taking advantage of former NBA guard Delonte West. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you know mental illness is not something to be played with. It affects us all. Um, so if you're not out here trying to help that brother, don't try to exploit him just for a couple of views on social media, just for a couple of likes on a post on social media. That's classless. And we're gonna get into that a little bit later, but that's classless. You should be out here trying to help our brothers and sisters that are dealing with mental illness. It's known that Delonte West has had a serious fight with mental illness. Uh, you know what I mean? So I just shame on you, man. We got to do better.
It's beyond classless. Um, this is a man who has been struggling with this for a very long time, who at times has accepted help, and at other times, whether it's his pride or whether his own feelings, has stepped away from the help. But just because he stepped away from that help doesn't mean that people should stop trying to help him. And more importantly, we should not be trying to take advantage or capitalize on it, because the video you're referencing, like you talked about in the group chat, if for the people who haven't seen it, it's a video where somebody says, "Oh, Delonte West is out here dancing in front of the 7-Eleven." He's not harming anybody. Yeah, he's dancing in front of 7-Eleven. But if that had been somebody who wasn't named Delonte West, if that was a guy just on the street, Mark Smith, that nobody ever knew about,
Yeah,
that particular individual would not have recorded it. They would not have posted it. But because they knew it was Delonte West and they knew it would get attention and they knew it would get views, they did it. And that's what makes it so terrible. That's what makes it so terrible. You're trying to exploit the struggles of somebody else for your likes and clicks. And that's to me, you have bigger mental issues than what Delonte West is dealing with. If that's what you're looking for, that type of acceptance.
yeah, I agree. So, but again, I same thing. My prayers go out to Delonte West as well. Um, I hope that brother can receive the help that's being offered to him, and I hope he gets more help. Again, we spoke about mental health a lot on this program. Shout out to Coach D. But it's not always a one time fix, and that's the end of it. Mental health doesn't work like that. When you're dealing with mental illness, it doesn't work like that. It's not always okay, one and done, and now you're back to your normal self, and then that's the end of it. No, sometimes it takes more than once. It takes more than twice, more than three times. Sometimes it could take a dozen times. Who knows? But I do hope that people continue to reach out and reach back for Delonte West, especially those from his NBA brotherhood.
Yeah, I agree, man. He needs help, and let's as many people that can get in contact with him, try to help him.
Exactly. NCAA, both championship games have went down, the men's and women's. Shout out to UConn. We'll start with them because their championship game was the most recent. Another one in the books for the tri-state area. Yeah, congratulations to UConn, man. I'm excited for these young gentlemen. They got a couple of guys that are going to be entering the draft, so I'm excited for them.
Shout out to UConn, man. It's their fifth national championship?
Yes.
I think it's their fifth overall national championship. Um, third different head coach to do it. Very dominant. Every win in the tournament was double digits, which is very surprising because we know March Madness for buzzer beaters and close games. UConn took all the excitement out of every game. They ain't let you hang around. They put you away. So kudos to them, man.
Foot on your neck, and that's how we move in the
That's
whole
it.
whole tournament. And that they stood on that literally. So congratulations to them. On the women's side, the highest, most viewed championship game ever. I believe it was 9.9 million viewers for LSU versus Iowa. Obviously, we know what happened with the game. LSU completely dominated Iowa. Congratulations to them on winning that championship. There was a little bit of controversy behind that. Um, and let me before we get into the controversy, let me just say this for those of you who may not know. I know some people have spoken about it, but for those of you that may not know, the "you can't see me" that did not come from John Cena. That came from Hollis by the Hero Shop from my main man Tony Yayo. Okay, that's his move right there. That's Tony Yayo's move. And John Cena has even said in an interview that he got that move from Tony Yayo, member of G Unit. If you guys didn't know, he's with 50 Cent a lot. He's one of 50 Cent's closest buddies. So we got to put that out there first and foremost and give Tony Yayo his respect for the "You Can't See Me" taunt. Even though it's turned into a taunt, when he did it, it wasn't. When he did it, it was just so that the police wouldn't see his face because he had open case at the time.
Nah, that's a fact. Yayo is the creator of that. Shout out to the LSU women. I am disappointed that this, ongoing discussion about trash talk and inappropriate or appropriate has overshadowed what took place. Because as you mentioned, the viewership of that game is historic. For
Mhm.
the LSU women, that was their first national championship. So I hate the fact that the other things now have become a bigger story. Like even now, the whole story about whether they would go to the White House because Joe Biden had talked about inviting both teams, which I did not agree with that at all. The winner gets to go to the White House, not the runner up.
I don't know where she came from with that one. That was like, do you not understand how this thing's I know you guys haven't been in the White House for the whole 4 years just yet, but you were there for my main man Barack Obese. You were there during that tenure, so you guys should know that only the team that won the championship goes to the White House. But maybe she was confused.
She
I don't
tried
know.
to clean it up. It was a PR move. They tried to clean it up and say she was suggesting that because of what the game had done for women's sports. To your point of like the viewership for that day, and
Mm.
she felt like it would be a good way to celebrate just the game as a whole. But that's something that you do separate from the champions getting that opportunity. If you want to put together something separate and say, hey, look, after we have LSU, we would love to do something with both teams for what they brought to the game, then
Yeah.
that's different. But in the meantime, and first things first, first order of business, the LSU Tigers, women Tigers, should be there and get their opportunity because the winner
Yeah.
goes the spoils.
And even if you feel that way, because I do actually think that is a good thing. That would be a good thing for women's sports to have something like that. But that's something that if you feel that way, after LSU comes to the White House and has their visit, then that's when you say, you know what? This game was so historic and it has done so much for women's sports. I want to set up something else where I have both of these teams come to the White House because this was something that we have never seen before and a number of viewers that we have never seen before in women's college basketball. So let's do something. And then it's like, you know what? I like that because this was a legendary game. Like I said, 9.9 million viewers, the highest all time. That would be dope to celebrate these two groups of women, right? But you don't say that as the championship has just been won, and on top of that, the game really wasn't that competitive. The LSU dominated that game from the beginning,
Well,
pretty
yeah,
much.
LSU had control of that game pretty much all game. And you're right though. Biden is wrong in that being her initial comment. Your initial comment should be congratulate LSU.
And that's it.
Right. And then you say, hey, I would love to do something with these ladies together after LSU gets their opportunity to come to the White House. Not
Yeah.
the first thought, hey, we should invite both teams. Like, nah.
Yeah, and they have said that they will be going to the White House. Angel Reese also said that the team made the decision to go and that she would be going with them, which I love because at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
you guys are a team, and it's not about an individual; it's about what's best for the team, and she understands that. And I think that was dope that she said that. Shout out to her. Shout out to Flage as well. The reason I'm shouting her out is because I remember seeing this young lady as a child on Jermaine Dupri's show, and she was on that show. What's the name? I forget the name of the show right now. I'm drawing a blank. But
The
she
joint that
actually
Lotto came off of?
she 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 raps as well.
Yeah, I know what joint you're talking about. That
On that,
Lotto was on that joint too. Yeah.
yes. So I've have known of her since she was a kid. So seeing her, continue because she still does her music. But to see her now also becoming the legend in two games in her own right, you know, congratulations to her. I thought that was dope as a freshman. To come in and she's a starter on that team and she's a very big contributor to that team. So I definitely want to shout out her as well. And the entire LSU team. You guys did a great job, had a great run, and you made it to the championship game, and you took care of business. And
Yeah, and
yeah,
listen, we gotta say it because people, of course, it's been talked about all week. The comments were completely out of bounds and inappropriate for people to say it was classless. All
yeah,
right, it was not classless. All right, me as a former youth coach, I didn't like the timing of it. As I've said to Trip and I spoke about this off air. I thought the timing was wrong because it was as the game was ending and you're about to go on the layup. I mean, on the handshake line.
yeah,
But I'm cool with trash talk, and I would never view it as classless because it's an emotional moment. We just won a championship, and I'm sure there was chatter on the court leading up to that moment as well.
of
They
course,
weren't they weren't hooping just being quiet the whole time. They was talking the whole time as well.
yeah,
But I thought it was very inappropriate of outlets and people in particular. We know who these people were who were called it classless. Um, who made inappropriate comments about Angel Reese because it wasn't about that. They were competing. If you didn't like the timing of it, that's fine. Me personally, I didn't like the timing of it, but I had no problem with the trash talk. Certain individuals like David Portnoy of Barstool Sports, um, I think he's gotten off easy because he is somebody who has a platform, and yet the other hosts on his platform have not called him out on this.
well, hold
He
on. Gillian Wallow did
to
call him out. So I,
to a certain extent.
yeah,
I thought they were also they handled it with kid gloves because they already have a relationship with him. But I do appreciate them at least addressing it.
yeah,
They addressed it. But I think that's where to me that's what's most troubling when somebody like him who's in a position of power, who's in a position of influence, he got a lot of followers on social media.
mhm,
And when he tweets out that's a classless act, you have these 2 million minions behind you who follow suit, who weren't even watching the game, but
it's just
will
around.
retweet,
Yep,
right? Who will now retweet and talk about it as if they knew what was happening in that moment. And the internet has a lot of power, man. And sometimes, like I said, we got to hold people accountable and make them realize, like, yo, you just can't tweet out anything you want without it affecting somebody. But I thought Angel was handled it great. I don't know if you saw a Trip. She recently, she's getting a lot of money out here. She's getting a lot of money out here. Kudos to her for really capitalizing on this moment. She has the merchandise out right now. She just did a commercial or a little snippet with Cane's, the restaurant, fast food restaurant, where
yeah.
she takes a jab at David Portnoy in the clip. So I like that she's capitalized on it and kind of throwing it back in everybody's face.
And she's the highest in NIL deals amongst college athletes. Period. Right now, so she's definitely getting to it, and she's gonna continue to get to it because she's an incredible talent, and LSU has a good team. They're gonna be right back in the mix next year as well. I will say this, uh, I would like to see them play again next season in the tournament because I think it's going to be another great one. So I'm looking forward to that. But definitely congratulations to LSU. It's not easy winning the tournament. It is not easy. So congratulations to those young ladies and to the coaching staff as well.
Big facts.
All right. Oh man. Okay, so let's we got in the NFL. Let's talk about Cam Newton, man. Cam Newton is up out here. He's ready for his comeback. I feel bad because when it's somebody who I rock with and they start doing too much, I feel bad that we got to talk about them, but we got to talk about them because that's what we do. We everybody can get this work. So Cam wants to come back, but I think he's a little. I think he has to humble himself a little. You know that MVP season was a long time ago. Long time ago. You haven't been that in a while. The last time we saw you, it got bad. The last couple of times we saw you, it got bad. So at this point, it's like, yo, bro, you gotta show and prove. S- Sports is a what have you done for me lately kind of world. It just is what it is. So you have to show and prove, humble yourself. Just get on the roster. We see how fast these teams go through quarterbacks in the season. Just get on somebody's roster. Work your way back in, and if you can get that to that number one spot, then all right. You know, I'm all for it. But you're gonna have to humble yourself a little bit, man.
I just, you know, Cam to me is a guy who is still holding on to old glory. And don't get me wrong, at his peak, Cam was special. There's no denying that. MVP of the league, took a team to a Super Bowl, got some playoff victories under his belt. Special guy. But as you mentioned, Trip, his last stint in Carolina didn't look so great. His stint in New England didn't look so great. And his stint in Carolina before that didn't really look so great either, towards the end of it anyway. And so now when he puts out clips and says, ain't no way you could tell me there's 32 quarterbacks better than me. I mean, I ain't got to tell you there's 32 quarterbacks better than you, but I could definitely tell you probably it's about 20, 25 of them that's better than you.
Yeah,
Um, then when he puts out a list of guys that he's willing to back up, that speaks to what you mentioned about humbling yourself. Because the issue I took with that list is you named a lot of young guys or guys who are not even in the NFL yet as a way for you thinking, if I back him up, that's the quickest way for me to start. Like, I think it's disrespectful that you would put Bryce Young and CJ Stroud on a list of guys you would back up, knowing that wherever they get drafted, they're drafted to be the face of the franchise. They're not being drafted there so that they have to look over their shoulder as to who the backup quarterback is. And
yeah,
when you say that, and then you look at the list and you're like, well, you willing to back up some of these guys who don't have a lot of experience, or who there would be a lot of pressure on because Cam Newton would be the backup. But you ain't list Patrick Mahomes. You
yeah,
ain't list Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You ain't list them guys because you knew there would be no shot of you playing. So you're only willing to back up a guy who you think you could take the job from. And
yeah.
that to me speaks to what you're saying about humble yourself. If you truly want to be in the league and you truly are willing to be a backup, say, I'm willing to be a backup. Let's not pick and choose the guys that I think I can take a job from. Because now to me, your intentions are bad now.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry. I agree with you, 1,000%, bro. Humble yourself, man. And because again, I'm a fan of Cam Newton. I am. First of all, I'm a fan of any black quarterback excelling, and I always want that. I don't really rock with Dak Prescott too tough, but still, I want to see the brothers succeed at that position, especially because it is a position that we were told that we could not play. So I'm always in support of that. But we also got to call a spade at the same time too, bro. Your resume these last couple of years, your hand don't call for that. So just take a job, man. Just get a job somewhere and show improve. Preseason training camp, just show improve, man. There's a lot of teams that have quarterbacks that can easily be replaced. Just take a job and then show improve, and that's it. And then that's how you shut everybody up. You take a job, you show improve. Things go bad or a guy goes in and you get a chance to get out there on that field, then do what you did in 2015. Okay, and then that's it. And then everybody got to shut up and be like, "Yo, Cam is back." But in the meantime, in between time, just humble yourself. Things will work out a lot easier for you.
I think, yeah, I think the part of all is that Cam is missing. Like I said, yeah, if we sit here and list every quarterback, yeah, there's a couple that Cam is probably better than. Don't get me wrong, but the quarterback position is really built around leadership. And if I'm bringing you into this building, into this facility as a backup quarterback, you still got to show leadership whether you're playing or not. It
Yep.
can't be only leadership when things are going your way and you're playing. It's got to be leadership from that backup position sometimes. Because, like you said, then when the call is made, like, yo, Cam, we need you, we can rely on you as a leader of this team, not as a guy who is only out for self. And to me, that video clip of him saying, "Ain't no way you could tell me 32 quarterbacks better than me," him putting out that list, him even showing up to Auburn Pro Day, which I thought was a little disrespectful too. Like, you're taking away shine from these young men who are trying to get themselves into the league.
Yeah.
You've been in the league, bro. What you look like in your 30s at pro day at Auburn.
Yeah, you ain't a scout.
Right. Like
You trying to get you a job. Like,
right. Like, I mean, but come on, bro. Like, we've seen other guys try to get back in the league, right? They don't do it that way. They don't show up to pro day. They call up their other NFL players and brothers and be like, yo, let's go work out. Let's run some routes. Let's do this on our own time. Why
yeah,
are you showing up to Auburn Pro Day to take away the shine of those young men who are trying to get in the league? Again, this is about leadership. If you want to get back in the league, you got to show that leadership because teams know you're not the MVP that you were 10 years ago. You're not that guy. So
yeah,
now it's time to show them the leader that you can be.
exactly. So it is what it is. We'll see. We'll see. I'm sure somebody will pick him up as a backup. So listen, man, just go out there, and play to the level that you feel that you can play to, and we'll take it from there. That's pretty much how that thing is gonna go. Let's talk. Let's get back to boxing because we running a little bit low on time. Anthony Joshua, he did beat Jermaine Franklin. That's his first win since I believe 2020. I know, Eric, but we gotta, it's the heavyweight division. He's back to calling out Tyson Fury again. He's trying to get back to the belts. It
He
is
ain't
it
trying to
is
get to the belts. He's trying to get to the money. Let's call it what it is.
yeah. Well,
You
let's.
couldn't beat Usyk. So what make you think you could beat Tyson Fury?
I don't think he can do that either.
Okay. All right. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. All right. You still don't want to fight Deontay Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
There's big money there too. And last time I checked, in the heavyweight rankings, Deontay Wilder is ranked higher than Anthony Joshua. So if you really want to get back to the belts, get back to fighting the guys who are ahead of you.
Yeah.
You still owe Andy Ruiz that third fight because y'all split your first two. You never fought Deontay Wilder. You ain't never beat Usyk. So you trying to jump the line on all those guys that are better than you to
Yep.
fight Tyson Fury. Why? Because you know it's a big bag attached to it. Let's call it what it is, Trey.
Exactly. And of course, the fight of the night. This is the fight that's going to determine who gets that title shot. Shakur Stevenson, and he's going to be fighting Shioshiro Yoshino. Both of these guys are undefeated for the WBC in the WCBC lightweight division. Um, it, I'm already team Shakur Stevenson. I already I'm picking him to win already. But is there any way that Yoshino wins this fight?
Well, he is a live underdog. You got to be careful. He's a very powerful fighter. I believe if you look at the record, he's 19-0 with 15 knockouts. So right, he is a dangerous fighter. Now, I don't think he's ever fought anyone the caliber of Shakur Stevenson. So I think Stevenson should be the heavy favorite, but there is a chance there because when you're dealing with a guy that's that heavy-handed, one slip up, one lapse, one lack of focus could flip this fight. I like Shakur a lot. I think Shakur wins.
Yeah, that just it's levels.
It's,
That's
it's
levels.
levels. It is.
That's levels to it. So I got to take Shakur Stevenson in this situation. Yeah, man. All right, man. Let's get ready to get up out of here. Let's give him a final thought, man.
I got two final thoughts. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us. You could be anywhere in the world, but you rock with us, and we greatly appreciate it. I wish everybody a happy Easter. We always talk about organizations, and I came across this story the other day, Trip, and I wanted to share it as my final thought. I want to give a major shout out to the LA Dodgers. They have a gentleman on their team that they still signed, that they've been signing for 3 years, even though he's not played with them. Brandon Tolles. He was an outfielder who is dealing with severe mental health issues. And the Dodgers continue to re-sign him every year because it allows him to be able to pay for his medical bills. And the Dodgers also cover a large portion of that medical bill as well. Also, it sets him up for his Major League Baseball pension because he'll have enough time served when that time comes. So as much as we like to discredit teams for not doing the right thing, I think this is a truly class act by the Dodgers to look out for this young man. He's not even 30 years old, but he's dealt with mental health issues, and that's what forced him to step away from the game of baseball. So the fact that the Dodgers have been willing to continue to foot that bill, knowing that it helps him, kudos to them.
I love that, man. Shout out to the Dodgers For that one, yeah, man, we we have to keep uh educating ourselves on mental health. I truly want to applaud the Dodgers for that because realistically they don't have to. They do not have to. But the fact that they continue to is incredible. That's one of those things where it's like, when you like, this is my team, this is why I love my team. Because of things like this is why I love my team. Big shout out to the Dodgers on that. I'm just gonna say thank you to everybody that's been rocking out with us. I'm seeing people popping in and out today on the live stream. Make sure you guys are following us on all our social media, facebook.com/ real fans real talk, Instagram, Twitter at real fan talk. And of course, you guys can subscribe to that YouTube channel. Let me throw it up on the screen, youtube.com/ for the fans productions. Make sure you guys are subscribed, and also make sure that you guys are subscribed to both the Sanchez Show and the Real Fans Real Talk podcast. We are on all major streaming platforms. And again, do not worry if you're not in the New York City area. Uh, doesn't matter because you can still watch from anywhere in the world. All you have to do is go to realfansrealtalk.com, click that red button on the homepage Thursday night at 8 o'clock, and you can watch with everybody else in New York City and around the world at realfansrealtalk.com. And again, shout out to you guys, man. We appreciate you guys continuing to rock out with us. We got a couple of big surprises coming soon, coming your way. So just be on the lookout, man. We're gonna start dropping stuff really soon. And again, we got a couple of guests that's gonna be joining us. Shushu is gonna be back with us soon to recap this second round knockout. What that name of Cannabis song too, right? What the second round knockout Cannabis song when he was going to LL. That was
That's a fact. Second round knockout.
that's Shushu, second round knockout, man. Congratulations again to Shushu, man, on another knockout victory. If you haven't already, go check the footage. I'm sure it's online right now. But he took that cat down. And with that being said, though, because we getting ready to go watch the Shakur Stevenson fight. For myself, Trip Young, my brother Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in Two Games. We up out of here.
We see y'all next week.
Yes, sir.